Breaking the gray.
Sarah Turner, the rebel scientist. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Russ.
Well, it's great to see you and hear your beautiful voice. I've been thinking a lot about you lately, just because my entire life has been turned upside down, and I am now, on this path to be a quantified selfer, biohacker. And every time I eat, I think of you. Every time I go to bed, I think of you. And now I'm hoping that our audience is doing the same thing. Don't you think they are?
I think so. I've been getting all kinds of strange messages asking me about people's eating habits and sleeping habits. And now we've just gone with the dry fasting. I'm getting a lot of messages about that. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Eugene Butcher, that one still haunts me, because it's like, I want to try it, but then I'm like, I can't do that. I can't go dry, like no liquids too, 7 days.
Yeah, it challenges your beliefs, which I think is one of the most interesting things about that. Not necessarily the not eating or drinking thing. It's the challenging your beliefs that we've been told that you die if you don't drink after 3 days or something. And then we saw Eugene and he looked fabulous. But, what else are we being told that we're just kind of taking, somebody else's word for?
Well, let's get to our guest today, because there's more to be told this wonderful world of biohacking and all of your rebel friends. Let's share. I'm excited. I see someone on the screen with a beautiful beard, and I want you to introduce us all to him.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of my friends have got these fabulous beards. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, today we have Andreas Breitfeld, and I want to bring him on because he's done a lot in the biohacking space, and he's got a biohacking lab where he has all the various gadgets and things. And we've spoken on numerous occasions. And certainly in Europe, he's very well respected for what he does. And again, he's another person who's pushing boundaries and challenging what people think they can do. So hi, Andreas. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Russ. Thank you so much for the invitation, and also for this very lovely kind of invite.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah. How are you?
No, I can't complain. We're still, while recording, in the midst of this, what I call the black plague. So life is still a little bit strange in Europe, as you probably have realized, being back in the UK now. Here in Germany, it's so-called summertime. The weather has not heard about the fact, so it's most of the time rainy and not that hot. But at least people are leaving their homes a little bit more. So the last 3 or 4 weeks, I would say, I was able to connect with people I have just been able to talk on a digital level before. So life is getting a little bit better, and overall, I'm getting a little bit back in the productive and a little bit more positive side. Let's put it like this.
Yes, me too.
The disconnection from people, I think, has had such an interesting impact. What have you noticed, Andreas, around kind of your reconnecting with people? What's your thought?
I don't know. One thing that just came to my mind when listening to another podcast earlier this day was there was a moment in spring when Clubhouse in Germany kicked off. That was fabulous, because we had like 8 weeks where we all of a sudden were capable of talking in bigger groups together. So that was a little bit glimpse of, oh my gosh, there's something I have really been missing. And now with walking in the somewhat sun with friends or seeing people, it's just like, oh my gosh, as much as we all love to do our scientific stuff as much as we love our experimentations. At the end, is this seeing real faces, touching people, talking to people, getting back a little bit oxytocin, and not just shooting out the energy in the internet. It's a huge difference. So for me, I'm at least happy for this little breathing break, no matter what the autumn is going to look like.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, Sarah and I have never met in person, and we've been doing this every week since October, November, December. So I don't even know if Sarah has legs. I have no idea. I'm assuming she does. I see pictures of her legs, but we only know each other from the shoulder up. I wonder constantly, as biohacking and just understanding yourself, human contact has to be a big part of staying alive, right? I mean, you hear these stories of when the twin dies, the other twin dies days later, and the husband dies, the wife dies, days later. Like, I've got to imagine that human contact is such an important part of longevity.
Absolutely. And I was doing this interview with Ben Greenfield a few weeks ago for Red Bull magazine, because I'm something like the consulting biohacker for Red Bull magazine in Europe right now to build something like a biohacking special. And this idea of this lady who just passed away with 121 years, drinking a little bit of wine every day, smoking even one cigarette a day, but being surrounded by beloved people every day. I think that's something, no matter if you look into the blue zones or whatever, but that's a fact we all have lost a little bit over the last 15 months or so. That's this real human touch, this real human contact. I can jump in my ice bath every day. I can do the hyperbaric chamber. I can do all the IVs and all the other nice stuff that's somewhat extending lifespan. But am I laughing while I'm doing it? Am I feeling alive while I'm doing it? Or is it just better to sit in the sun with people you really like and talk about shit?
Right. Yeah. Sarah knows you well, Andreas. We just met moments ago. I'm surrounded by my ray of sunshine daily when I get to talk to Sarah. Now I'm hearing, and I'm hearing that you are kind of literally the polar opposite. You're ice guy. You like to be cold. So how does your lab work? What is this hyperbolic chamber that you're talking about? I'm curious. When we have such a polar opposite here between sunlight and cold, like how does it work?
Yeah, let's put it like this: the one can't exist without the other, or both can exist alone. But basically, it's this connection between the cold and the sun afterwards that makes the body thrive. And I think that's a little bit like the But before we come to the cold and special, just a brief one about this lab. So my story started 7 years ago. I'm, as you can see on the monitor right now, one of the older biohackers in the industry. So I'm a classical moving away from dude, not a moving towards something dude. So for me, it was about getting rid of being sick, getting rid of being burnout, getting rid of being tired of my life. To make it quite clear, after running a communication and PR agency, I just had to reinvent myself because stuff was no longer working on no level. And after 6 to 9 months, I had fixed myself, and I was so enthusiastic about the fact that I could drink for 20 years, smoke for 20 years, treat my body like the worst rental on the planet, and then within 6 or 9 months come somehow back in a form that was quite decent. And in the worst case, you would say, got addicted a little bit on the things and started to play around, like, okay, if I managed to fix my gut, if I managed to get rid of the heavy metals in my bloodstream, if I managed to cure my brain, at least on a level that I do not longer stutter in German, what happened to me for a period of a year or so when I was in the middle of this burnout thing. So I was super enthusiastic about all these modalities, all these approaches, and having been trained as an editor like 25 years ago with Shape magazine, like a fitness magazine, I felt like I want to become this investigative kind of journalist who is trying out all the stuff to give some recommendations on the one or the other level, and was lucky enough to get also something like a development type of job with a textile production company that felt like there's some room for biohacking clothing. So I started to play around with little devices, bigger devices, and whatever stuck in terms of I could quantify the results, or I felt like there's something really happening to me or even to my guests later on that became part of this lab. But it's not like a shiny lab, not like a Next Health in Los Angeles. It's a little bit more like this kind of craftsman's shop. It's a little bit like I'm the weird old guy running around and showing people what I have, and then hopefully the clients trust me enough to get something like a first wrap up, and then I send them over to the detailed guys who can help them a little bit longer. But in the essence, there's also stuff around from various kinds of light therapy, red light therapy, obviously, like Sarah's topic, a little bit with UVB lamps for these problems we have in Northern Europe. Obviously, there is this hyperbaric chamber. There is some kind of hypogonetic light that helps you to get in a sweet LSD-like psychedelic kind of mindset without having to actually ingest anything. There's a little bit of pulsed electromagnetic field treatment, frequency-specific microcurrent, this hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which is a little bit like a tough thing in Europe because our legislation on having something like this is, tralala, let's put it like this. In the middle of all this, and that's, if I got it in the beginning right, a little bit our topic today is this converted chest freezer, like the marvelous ice bath, which somehow seems to be not the nicest thing I have in the lab, definitely not the most expensive thing I have in the lab, but the thing that is a little bit like the starting point of most of the strategies I apply to myself and to my friends and clients at the lab nowadays.
So you mentioned, Sarah, I just want to ask one question. You mentioned the term "you fixed yourself," and I think that it's an interesting way to put it, because I think a lot of people are going through burnout. I think a lot of people are staring at themselves saying, what am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing all this? And life has changed so much. And I think burnout is just staring people in the face. And I too, 25-year career, staring at it going, what else is there? Walk me through that moment. What is the thing that you did first when you said, I need to fix myself? I am curious how you started, because I think that's where everyone has the hard part, is how do you get started?
Yeah, I think for me the story was really a little bit curious. So I had the ride of my life. My communication and PR and marketing agency was thriving. We just brought GoPro to Europe. I had realized that there's a huge outdoor market in South Korea with players that are closely as big as in the United States, and that the editors here in Europe had no idea about South Korea and the brand. So I was conducting press trips on the plane to South Korea, like on a bi-weekly basis. I had found a production company in China that was basically coining the highest quality of outdoor apparel for most of the brands I worked before, and I had become their marketing guy. So I was also bringing lots of editors to China, and I don't know. It's a very rude business when you conduct press trips as a PR guy, you are in charge that everybody is happy. So you are opening the last bottle of wine, and you're making sure that the most thirsty soul is getting not lost alone, but you're closing the bar.
So it's true. And if you're in Korea, the bars don't close, and it's soju, and you're just like, when is everyone going to go to bed? Because they don't go to bed in Korea. I don't know how they do it. I
have no idea. It's the funniest thing with Korea is what I really started to respect is when they pass out on the table, because that's allowed. And basically, when you do this trick, you can go home afterwards. But I realized way too late. So anyway, to come back to our topic, so I had the ride of my life. I just disembarked out of a plane with 228,000 miles in 1 year in economy class.
Wow.
So that's just like completely nuts anyway. And after the biggest trade show in the sporting industry, I did my annual trip to Thailand. And the second evening, after reading in a book that most of the Thailand cab drivers used to be hitmen, I spoke to one of them and asked quite insistingly how much it would be to find somebody to shoot my head.
Oh my goodness.
Now the Thai are very friendly people, so he brought me to my apartment or whatever, and talked a little bit to my girlfriend.
Oh,
and the next morning she looked at me and said, "Darling, I guess we have to talk." And that a long story short, that was the beginning. I had to realize that I had lost all my fun, that I had lost in life, that I had lost all my hormones, every kind, no matter if it's about being stressed or sexual hormones or whatever. There was nothing left. I was like, in the 80s, they used to have this plastic kind of plants in the offices. And usually nobody would take care of them, so there would be a high layer of dust, and that was like my spirit plant or something like this, a dusty plastic plant, and so that this tiptoe on my shoulders, like what's up with you, on a very intense level was helping a lot. And then once I started sharing, whilst we talked, I just realized if I looked at the checklist, okay, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working. And since it was somewhat the beginning of a 3-week kind of holiday, I did what I was trained to 20 years ago. I started to read, and being an editor by original job description, whatever, finding data was not so complicated. And so now 8 years ago, I ran in the early works of guys like Asprey, Greenfield, name it. Tim Ferriss was quite big there. And this approach of a little bit quantified self, n equals 1, and also this looking at the elephants in the room a little bit more helped me a lot to realize, okay, I have issues with my hormonal production. It sounds super simple, but if you're just in your funnel and running, you don't check what's going on. So getting back to Germany, having a blood panel, and just discussing with my doctor, who looked very sad when he saw the lab works afterwards. Like, now can you imagine, doc, how my life felt over the last month? And I said, okay, I see. And that was the starting point.
But it's a great point though, Andreas. So then you identified where your hormone levels were low, and did you just try to get those hormone levels up? Is that what you first focused on?
Exactly. And and even with 42, I got on hormonal replacement therapy for 6 months, because we felt like there is nothing to uprise at the moment. So there was no DHEA, there was no pregnenolone, there was nothing, not talking about a testosterone or cortisol. There was just even the stuff that would have been necessary to build the rest was not around. So I I got the bioidentical stuff for 6 months, but it was quite funny. After, I guess, 2 months, things naturally started to get up again, and nowadays I'm fine. But the takeaway for me was a little bit: if the chassis is broken, find a workshop, because you're not going to fix it completely alone. But yeah.
Okay, and where did you go after that then? After you'd taken the supplemental hormones, where did you start with it all? Because it is a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it was, and I did not have actually a super big clue. I was really aware that my brain was no longer in the position it used to be, put it like this, especially this stuttering or not being able to articulate myself. Now in English, it's a little bit hard for your listeners to understand, because my English is like it is, and I'm obviously having this accent, and even the words don't go by like a charm. But in German, I'm used to be quite funny, and used to be able to articulate myself, and sitting there and saying instead of the word was not the best thing. So yeah, it's just what's the reason for it? And I guess it was the young Tim Ferriss who came up with this idea of the heavy metals. Right. And the impact of the heavy metals to the brain. So we went into this topic, and basically we started with chelation therapy, and after a few rounds, I felt already better, and then I felt like, okay, but the only thing that's really annoying is spending 3 hours at the doctor's office 2 days a week. So I learned to do the IVs myself, and yeah. Then Pandora's box was open. So I started with the self-experimenting stuff. Whatever I was reading, I was discussing with it's this kind old doctor who at some way of my journey passed out, because he felt like it's getting now a little bit too interesting what I want to do. But I found another one, and we are still having lots of fun together. So things developed, and at the end, once I had this heavy metal thing resolved, I just realized how disconnected I had become from my own life, and how disconnected life at all had become. And yeah, then you would open this kind of story about how would humans have lived 5,000 years ago or something like this. Yes. And then you would look into what have you been missing, like a decent kind of breathing technique, because talking all the day, you automatically become a mouth breather. What do you want to do? And if talking is your job, hello to all the PR dudes. It's not the funniest idea. Yeah. So that was something. Light exposure, sun exposure. So the easier stuff, looking into nutrition, are all these carbs making sense? Is it really necessary to have alcohol in your diet 3 or 4 days a day? Is it necessary to have alcohol in your diet at all? Just asking myself the questions and coming up with answers was the next 2 years, and the last thing, and then I stopped the monologue. So one thing I realized that made a real impact was that for me, starting to eat was never an issue, but stopping to eat was always an issue. So it was mentally fatiguing for me to have 3 meals a day, because I always had to stop them. So once I switched to 1 meal a day, I felt like there's room for another 2,000 decisions.
Right.
Yeah. Sarah, I have a question, because this is actually the first that this has come up in our conversations around the kind of heavy metals in your body. I know I used to listen to my fair share of Iron Maiden and Metallica. I think it's different than that.
I think it's different, but yeah, that might not be.
Some Scorpions too. Let's give some German love, some Scorpions, some Klaus Main. But what does that mean? Like, and how do you get the metals? First off, how do they get in there, and how do you get them out?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Andreas. Like, how do you think you got such toxicity? Because if you're going to the extreme of actually doing IVs.
Trust me, my lab works. I guess they are still hanging somewhere, like in a frame behind of my doctor, because they were a little bit extraordinary. Yeah. Honestly, I used to never to be like the guy who was capable of the gray tones. I was either black or white. When I was doing sports, I was training spinning instructors. I was a master trainer for indoor cycling. When I was running marathon, I was running marathon with a personal best of 2:48. So when I do something, I do it like quite focused, and most probably when I'm a party animal, I'm also doing it the same. So this mixture just led to this loss of tight junctions in the guts, and then you combine it with what we perceived healthy in the 90s kind of nutrition, with lots of canned tuna fish, because lean proteins and stuff like this. And then for me, being the guy who could easily have the same kind of food 5 days a day during the week. So it was just like really combining everything you shouldn't do, like raising inflammation through chronic cardio, raising inflammation through a bad kind of nutrition habit, then having lots of foods that have been, nowadays we know probably already been quite loaded with mercury and lead and all the other stuff, like 10 years before, and adding this up with being like in the on a performance level of drinking. At the end, if you manage to get the guts leaky enough, you manage to fill and eat the wrong food. I think it's not like a super mysterious thing, and with also a little bit strange impacts our modern society lifestyle has on the food quality. Here in Germany, it's not so unusual nowadays to have guys in the 40s who find out that lead or especially mercury levels are completely weird. And nowadays, my doctor is telling me the younger guys now come up with glyphosate levels that are close to as impressive as I managed to do it with mercury and lead.
Just from farming, just from the farming methods, presumably you're getting all of those pesticides.
It's weird. Nowadays we're talking about natural, but it's a normal way of nutrition, and it's not normal. It's completely unnormal. But anyway, so that was the short thing. Doing too much high intensity chronic cardio, wrong nutrition, bad drinking habits, too much stress, and over, I would say, 5 years, I managed to really wreck myself quite heavily.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because basically you were very successful. You were doing a lot of exercise and you were eating a lot of protein, which I think most people are going to say, wow, that's a healthy chap. And yet because you were doing everything to the extreme, eating the same thing, totally caning your part, that's really what happened there. So, it's almost like too much of a good thing in your case.
Yeah, that's the one thing. And of course, I was listening to another podcast you guys recorded a few weeks ago, I guess, with Boomer. I must admit, like when I was a fitness editor for Shape magazine, we always were wondering when the one or the other reader did not come to the success we anticipated due to the nutrition tips or the diet suggestions we were giving out. And we always felt like, it's a lack of compliance. But no, it's not a fucking lack of compliance. It's just the fact that we all have human bodies, but not all human bodies are completely equal. And what works for A doesn't work for B, doesn't work for C. And just this thing, which should be so simple, is the truth that took us until the beginning of this, right in the beginning of the century. Now we can admit if you may or may not digest carbs better than your brother, than your sister, than your spouse, than whatever, and vice versa. And for me, the tips that would have been working for many of the people quite well didn't work at all. That's it.
And hence the measurement, really, and hence the quantified self, because that's how having that awareness of your own biology, your own psychology. Yeah, that's how you know. So I assume you've got tons of different measures and monitors.
Yeah, nowadays, I must admit, I'm cutting a little bit back again. But when it comes to lab works, when it comes to looking into, a few years ago, you'd end up with bloody fingertips because taking a look at the blood sugar was something like crucifying yourself.
I've been doing that lately, and it's a bit hardcore.
And nowadays you have the CGMs, and they just they are not so precise, and yes, they still have their flaws, but at the end they give you a nice impression what's going on. You can buy vitamin analysis and all this stuff over the internet without having to bother if your doctor feels like you need them or not. You just can get in charge of your own health and become a little bit of the CEO for the thing that you call your body. And I think that's at the end one of the most obligation we have.
Yeah, I love that.
And I'm curious because we've heard so many people talk about their philosophies and their things that work. And I think it probably maybe goes to, there are foundations of biohacking. There are things that fundamentally you need to do. And I'm going to throw it out there. Maybe sunlight is a foundational thing. Like sunlight is a foundational thing that you need. And I'm going to assume that maybe the cold is something too. So what you consume, what you listen to, how you think, all those things are personalized to you and how you react to them. But I'm wondering if heat and cold are things that are foundational in biohacking.
It depends. It depends. So first of all, Russ, I have to get that one out. I think with biohacking, it's a term. At the end, the people who find each other under this terminology of biohacking, I think we are somehow looking for Pauls who are also interested in health, who have a little bit of a fable for this and that. And biohacking is like a stew. And everybody who is passing by is throwing in whatever he finds in his kitchen, and then he takes a spoon off, and if it still tastes well, he recommends it to the next guy, and to the next guy, and to the next guy. So I think there is not something like the holy 12 principles of biohacking or so. And even with the cold, to come back to this one, which is probably one of these ancestral forces. It's one of the things that helps us on so many levels, because it fixes a mind, it fixes a body, it can help with inflammation and blah, blah, blah. If you are a skinny lady suffering from what kind of Hashimoto or stuff like this, please do me a favor and never jump in a fucking ice bath. There is no reason to do stuff if your body is not prepared for it. And even with the cold, if your listeners don't have a video function, I guess, but I'm not like the skinny like pen type of guy. I have a little bit of volume. So for me, withstanding the cold is something I can imagine somewhat natural, because I'm coming with some insulation. But I'm seeing people who can easily do whatever a 20-second hot, 10-second cold, 20-second cold, 10-second hot changing shower regime or something like this easily. But if you put them into an ice bath with whatever 3 degrees Celsius, Sarah, you have to help me with the Fahrenheit.
I'm not good at that either, but yes.
So if you're close to freezing temperature and you don't have the body mass and you don't have the fat insulation, you're probably getting lost. If you look into Russia and look into these guys who have been swimming in the ice for the last 50, 80, 200 years, and this history of winter swimming in the Nordic centuries, it's probably the guys and girls who come in with a little bit of insulation. So that's also something. But yes, in case you're somewhat normal with your build and with your body, the cold is super beneficial, because where do we start? On a mental level, once you start accepting that you are now in this kind of really mercy-free kind of element, you just get in touch with yourself. This chatter in the mind slows down. Focusing is no longer a luxury, but it's just inevitable to cope with the situation. So on a mental level, I think it's something we all can work a little bit with. And even if with a cold shower, in the moment where the cold shower hits you, it's like when you get this gapping reflex, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, in this moment, something happens, and then when you realize I can do it, it doesn't feel nice, but I can do it, and all of a sudden, like the more eloquent guys would say, the cold becomes your friend. Yeah. Something shifts in your brain, and this kind of resilience is paying back, in my eyes, in the day-to-day business. And it's also the way you handle the cold is also a quite good indicator of how your whole system is working. So just to do another very brief detour. Last autumn, my older daughter was catching the COVID thing, and so she was in quarantine at my place, and we continued living together like all the days, and nothing else happened besides I was not allowed to leave home for 10 days. And all of a sudden, I felt like, okay, I'm getting nuts now. And the result was I had like 2 months. I couldn't jump in the ice bath any longer because my corticoids would stop working again, because this kind of stress with this quarantine thing, nobody exactly understood why was really shooting something in the wrong direction. So after 2 months, when I realized now I can sit in the ice bath for 5 or 10 minutes again, I was aware now things are back again to normal. But before, when I couldn't handle the cold, I had to admit, okay, there's something just broken inside of me. So even this is a nice kind of indicator light if the system is working. And besides of this a little bit more negative aspect, or not even negative, quantifying aspect, if you look into the body yourself, we have all these inflammatory processes we need at some point, but at another point we don't need them. So the cold helps you to speed up recovery, no matter if you're an athlete or an athlete of life. It's super helpful for this one.
Andreas, does it help reduce swelling? I mean, it slows down the blood flow to the area where you're swelling, right? Because I have a daughter who plays. A couple of my daughters play sports, and they go to cryotherapy, and they go and get the localized the cold thing on there, and it reduces my daughter's ankle swelling. But if you are doing plunges in an ice bath, does that help reduce it all over your body?
Absolutely, yes. It was, I would say that was like something people in the high performance sports were already aware of 30 years ago. So that I think that was the reduction of swelling was the initial thing people were aware of. Then came this phenomenon of putting the legs in the ice bath, especially in the worlds of soccer and pro sports, to speed up recovery for the guys who had more than one kind of championship match within a week, because of course you can or cannot blunt hormetic response to exercise if you jump into the ice bath too long directly after training. But if we're talking about a championship, a match, and you just want to be fit for the next round as quick as possible, it's super helpful there. And I think it's widely accepted nowadays. That's even in the sports science facilities. So I think that's a more or less no-brainer nowadays to talk about. But even with this other kinds of inflammation. I think the studies that are out nowadays really proves the point that even with chronic inflammations, not as a sport reaction or impact reaction, but based on malnutrition and shitty lifestyle, and even probably too much exposure to electromagnetic fields on the non-natural level, it's really helpful to get to cool down in the best way of the world. And overall, I guess if there's something like a superpower we all need nowadays, it's resilience anyway. And there's not much that teaches you resilience better than the cold, I would say.
That's right. Is there a right time of day? Is it better to do it in the morning? Better to do it in the evening? Is it? Yeah,
I think that's also a little bit against this n=1 thing. So for me, definitely I need to do the cold in the morning because it really raises my cortisol levels. So I would not be able to go to bed after an ice bath. I think Wim Hof is a huge fan of jumping in the cold 1 hour before he goes to bed, like the godfather of cold bathing. But I think he's spending all the day with the ice, so that's a different kind of chap. And if I talk to whatever Wim Hof instructor, I think there's something like a bottom line: cold in the morning, heat at night, and everything's fine. Because if you expose yourself to a hot bath in the evening afterwards, as a natural reaction, your body would cool down, which helps you to fall asleep. Similar a little bit with the warm socks, but in the morning I would do the cold. So for me, again, n=1 equals Breitfeld. I get my cold thing first thing in the morning. Afterwards, I jump in the light, because also this is something we should mention for those living in a kind of country where you have the seasons. When spring comes out and the sun starts shining a little bit more, and you jump in a natural body of water and you come out, you realize that the sun feels way more intense after the cold than before. And that's also something based on a physical process we are prepared for. So the light would also get deeper into the skin after the cold than before. So for our red light therapy friends out there, please use the cold as a primer.
So so now I have my morning set. I am getting my 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Not really, trying. And now I'm going to go take a very cold shower bath and then go get my morning sunrise sunlight. So I'm doing a 4 a.m. ice bath and then going to get my sunrise sunlight. Okay, got it.
I'm feeling a little bit guilty if you really have to get up at 4 a.m. to get the shower, but besides of it sounds perfect. Yeah.
Well, so I say this, and I'm tracking this because I have a little bit of an indication where I think I know what our 7-day challenge is going to be.
Yes, I think so too.
So, Andreas, tell us what it is, and then Sarah and I can get prepped for it. And what do you think?
It's quite lame. I would really say, I don't know your personal history with cold showers, but I would say if you manage to do 2 days, 20 seconds warm, 10 seconds cold for 3 minutes, and then 3 days with 10 seconds warm, 20 seconds cold with 3 minutes. And then for the last 2 days, I guess we have left, you really try to do this 2 to 3 minutes cold shower. I think we're good to go, because everything that's above this is, does everybody need to go to the Olympics? I don't think so.
No,
but do yourself a favor. Take care of the neck area, take care of the upper part of the shoulder, the neck area, because that's really the place where you trigger the biggest fight or freeze response, and the upper part of the shoulders, because if those studies that look so promising that the conversion from white fat to brown fat is triggered, it seems to be this part of the body where this happens the most. So just to make sure I'm having on my little bit of nerdy hat, don't forget the shoulders and the neck.
So put it there or don't put it there, Andreas. Definitely put it there.
Definitely put it there, yes.
All right.
So I will tell you, with my cold showers, I start on my spine. I the only way I can do it is I have to activate my spine first, because I'm not going front side. I'm
Okay.
sorry, but I can't. I have to go cold on the back first. Hey, where Andreas, what do you think? Like, do you start with a cold shower? Do you suggest like on your back? Is that kind of the best way to kind of?
I would do it like this. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't. Honestly, it's not rocket science.
No.
I think what is the funny thing? What's this? Rocket scientists who basically coined this idea of the mixture between cold and hot showers. Ray Krona is found out 15 years ago. You don't even have to do just the pure cold showers. If you switch between warm and cold, it's still doing the trick. So it's all good.
Okay.
All right. Well, challenge accepted. Russ, I saw you writing that down. So
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. So we've got to do 10 seconds of warm, get ourselves ready for the cold, 3 days a week. Is that right?
Yeah.
3 days in the week. Okay. And then 2 to 3 minute cold showers.
Exactly.
3 days a week.
I like
right.
swimming in a body of water, but actually here I went swimming in a lake at the weekend and it wasn't cold.
Yeah, it's with Russ being located in California, that's lame all the year.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, we can't get off like that. No way.
Our ocean is freezing. Northern California ocean is freezing. That's why the great white sharks love it.
Santa Cruz is as cold as England, I think.
It's freezing. I don't know what. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're in. So we have to wrap. Andreas, you are one of the most fascinating people we've spoken to. Sarah,
sure.
Again, thank you for bringing your friends here. Andreas, I would love to talk more. We could talk for hours.
Yeah.
When the world opens up, I would love to come visit your lab and jump into a hyperbolic chamber, meet everyone that's there. Yeah.
You guys have to do a tour at some point, and of course you're cordially invited. And let's hope this episode of restrictions is going to find an end. And for now, thank you so much for having me on. And Sarah, you have to come back to my show pretty soon.
Yes,
we have to fill it out. So.
Yes, I'll tell you about my new device address. That's going to be cool. But it was really lovely to see you, even if it was virtually. And thanks again for coming on.
And Andreas, where can people find you if they wanted to learn more about you?
So most of the stuff is nowadays on Instagram on Breitfeld_biohacking. And there's also a website with the same kind of thing, and there's also Breitfeld is a podcast, which is my newest baby, because like Sarah and you realized it's quite nice to talk with people and connect, and a podcast gives us this wonderful opportunity to talk with all the clever guys you have been missing for a year or so.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
And you bet. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow, Sarah, I'm like bundled up. I have a sweater on. I'm chilled to the bone. How are you?
Yeah, likewise. Yep, freezing.
Yeah, and it's the middle of summer for me. Well, end of summer. So let's talk about Andreas. I mean, what a amazing, fascinating person.
Yes, he's brilliant, isn't he? Yeah, really good guy.
Yeah, I want to go to his lab. You've been there.
I haven't been there yet.
What?
No, I haven't. I know. He's kind of squirreled away down there in Germany. So yes, it's on my list.
It will be very fun. I'm super excited to talk to you, about this, because I feel like he really touched on a lot of things that, I'm in his position. Like he talks about, the stress of work and really looking at his body. And I just did a bunch of doctor's appointments because it was due for my annual physical, and my thyroid counts are okay, but my cholesterol is through the roof. My blood pressure is high. And like, these are all things that just are from stress. And, he sounds like he's got a handle on his stress now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, his story was very interesting, wasn't it? Because he's going from that, it sounded actually like he had a good life. He was doing a lot of exercise. He was very successful. He had a good relationship. He had a nice house. He had a nice car. You know, lots of people may think, you know, that, wow, he's doing really well. But actually, he was doing too much exercise. He was working too much. He was getting too stressed out. And when he looked at his labs, they were the exact opposite of what you might think just from looking at him or hearing this story.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
And then the one question I have for you, and I took a note as we were talking, and I looked it up and trying to figure out, like, how do we get the heavy metals out of our body? Like, what does that mean?
Well, what Andreas was talking about was chelation therapy, where you take a compound and a chelating agent will actually like seal in the toxin, the heavy metal, so you can excrete it. Oh. But he was going quite extreme, because I know he was actually injecting, wasn't he? Or was having the compound injected, which, you know, not a lot of people are prepared to do that. But there are a lot of things like activated charcoal. You can look at like your fillings. A lot of people have their metal fillings removed to get rid of that kind of toxicity, but you have to get it done properly so that you don't make the problem worse.
Yeah.
Clay, you can eat active clay. I know a lot of people that do that to that clears out your system, and it actually draws the toxins and the heavy metals out with it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Bentonite clay is a good ingredient.
How do you spell it?
Bentonite. Oh, it's just exactly how you would say it. Yes.
Okay. Bentonite for all of our listeners. Bentonite clay. So we're going to be looking at people eating clay now. Like what was that movie I just watched recently where like they were eating clay to fill them up? I was just watching someone was talking about how their mother did that growing up because she didn't have any food. It was Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah was talking about how his mother would eat clay from the riverbed because they didn't have enough food and it would fill her up.
Oh, that's really sad.
So when he grew up, food was such an important thing in his life because his mother would always say, well, I ate clay. You know, I ate clay growing up. But okay, nonetheless, let's talk about what he asked us to do, which was get cold and take cold showers. And how are you doing with it?
Well, do you know what? I was dreading it because I have done a lot of cold water immersion therapy. And actually, I went to see Wim Hof and did his program with him there. So I have done that, and I've done the Wim Hof breathing, and I've done swimming in the Baltic Sea. And so, but when you get out of practice of it, and then the thought of it becomes a bit intimidating. And so when I went to do my first shower, I did put it off, but actually it was fine, Russ. It was fine. And I got back into it, and I did the turning the water up and down and stood under it. I won't say I loved it because I don't love the showers as much as I love going in a cold body of natural water.
Right.
But it was fine. And I've since been swimming in England. And this weekend, I'm actually going away to the east coast of England, which is equally as freezing. And I will be doing my cold sea swimming. So actually, you know, as far as challenges go, it was a good one. I liked it. And you always feel better after doing these things. Like you said,
totally.
You feel better because of all the benefits. And there are so many health benefits. But just, you know, it's just a challenge you can overcome. First thing, you've already done something, you know. Yeah. You've already challenged yourself.
And this idea, that's right. And I think this idea of, you know, taking kind of the on and off approach for a cold shower, like it doesn't mean you're going to go take a 20-minute cold shower like you would take a 20-minute hot shower. And if anything, I bet you there's some conservation here too. Like you wouldn't need to take you don't probably need to take a 20 to 30-minute shower like my son does. Like you could take a nice 5-minute cold shower, get your body clean, done, and you just reset your body temperature. Yeah.
No, it's a good one. I mean, he was very cautious, wasn't he? And he was saying, you know, there's certain caveats and certain people can tolerate it and listen to your body. You know, I think he was very measured in his response, which was great because we're all for the be aware of your body and use yourself as the experiment. But on the whole, I think this is something that most people can try.
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you, and I will give kind of an honest answer to this, and I won't get terribly explicit, but I used to take cold showers because I once had a hairstylist that told me it slows hair loss down if you actually wash your hair in cold water. The problem with washing your hair in cold water in a shower is that when you wash your hair, your entire body gets wet. So I essentially was taking a cold shower for many, many years. I finally have just been giving up and saying, My hair is going to fall out. It's going to be fine. I'll survive. My wife loves me with or without hair, I think. But like, you're essentially taking a cold shower. So I went back to it and I just realized how much I loved cold showers. Like, it's actually like exhilarating and fun. You go in, you get done, and you know, you get a little bit of it actually perks you up. I thought
it does. And even like, if you don't want to get your whole body wet, you can do like the face dunking thing, you know, where you just fill your sink up with ice water and just immerse your face there.
Yeah.
That's a thing. And also, you know, if you can put the just cold shower head just on the back of your neck and your head and like sort of hang over the bath, you know, this is one of the things I think that is available to almost everyone.
Yeah.
Instant benefits. Why wouldn't you try
instant
this
benefits?
One?
Exactly. Do it. It takes nothing except for a little bit of courage. But once you do it, and no one's judging because you're by yourself in the shower. Now, if you shower with your significant other, your partner, your spouse, with your children, whatever, I would give them a warning that you're going to do this.
Yeah.
But in general, it's a nice, pleasant thing. Thank you for bringing Andreas into my life, into our listeners' lives. And this is great.
It was great. Yeah. And yeah, thumbs up to Andreas. Yeah, it would be lovely to have him on again because, you know, I'm sure we only touched the tip of the iceberg of what he can actually bring. So yeah, I loved Andreas. All good.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Russ. See you next week.
The Rebel Scientist Podcast is a Breaking the Gray production. Created by Russ Eisenman and Paul Wood. Hosted by Sarah Turner. Music and sound editing by Logan Shea. For more information and other fantastic podcasts, visit breakingthegray.com. That's gray with an E. breakingthegray.com.
Breaking the gray.